Why everything changes, even more, after $20,000. You know that moment when you open your banking app and instead of your stomach dropping, you actually feel something close to calm? Like when ordering food doesn't involve quietly doing math in your head, or buying groceries doesn't feel like a negotiation with your future self. There's a specific dollar amount where that switch flips, and it's not the number most people are chasing. Financial influencers love to talk about 7 figures. Hit $1 million and you've made it, they say. Or maybe 6 figures is the magic salary that unlocks a better life. But they're all pointing at the wrong target. There's a much smaller number that rewires your entire relationship with money first, and once you cross it, you'll never look at your finances the same way again. That number is $20,000. My name is Nick, and I've spent an embarrassing amount of time studying financial psychology. Specifically why certain people seem to build wealth almost effortlessly, while others grind for decades and barely move the needle. If you want to understand the actual mechanics underneath wealth building, not just the surface level stuff, hit subscribe and drop a thumbs up if this video shifts something for you. Now before we get into why $20,000 is the real line in the sand, I want you to think about how you currently picture wealth building. Maybe you imagine someone born into money already playing with a stacked deck. Or maybe you picture years of painful sacrifice, grinding dollar by dollar until something finally clicks. Here's the truth. Wealth doesn't accumulate the way most people imagine. There are specific financial thresholds that operate like invisible gates. The moment you push through one, the rules genuinely change. $20,000 is the first gate, the one that separates people who will quietly build real wealth from people who will spend their whole lives reacting to money instead of directing it. And most people don't even know the gate exists. Here's the way I like to think about it. Imagine rolling a massive boulder up a steep hill. The first few feet are brutal. You're burning energy, losing traction, questioning whether it's even worth it. But once you build enough momentum and the boulder finally crests the top, something completely different happens. Gravity stops being your enemy and starts working for you. The boulder moves on its own. $20,000 is where you crest the hill. Everything before that point, you're fighting uphill. Everything after, the slope starts working in your direction. But here's the thing that most money conversations completely skip over, and it might be the most important part. The difference isn't only in the math. It's not simply that you have a bigger base generating larger returns. The real change happens inside your head. When you have nothing saved, your brain runs in what psychologists call scarcity mode. Every financial decision gets processed through a filter of fear. You take the job offer that comes first, not the best one, because you can't afford to wait. You stay in situations you hate because walking away feels too dangerous. You say yes to things that don't serve you because the paycheck matters more than the principle. This isn't weakness. This is your brain doing exactly what it's designed to do when resources are low. The problem is that survival mode completely blocks the part of your mind responsible for spotting opportunity and thinking long-term. It's like trying to map out a road trip while your engine is on fire. But something measurable happens when you cross $20,000. Suddenly, your brain has room to ask different questions. Instead of, how do I make it to Friday? You start asking, how do I make this money work harder? Instead of putting out fires, you're looking at the horizon. Research from Vanguard found that having just $2,000 in emergency savings increases financial well-being scores by 21%. Not $20,000. $2,000. That's less than most people spend on a phone and a case. Just that small buffer creates a real psychological shift because it pulls you out of constant crisis mode. Push that buffer up to 3 to 6 months of living expenses, which for most people lands somewhere around $20,000, and you pick up another 13% improvement in financial well-being. More importantly, you've created enough mental breathing room to start actually building wealth instead of just defending against losing what little you have. Now let's talk about the math, because this is where it gets genuinely exciting. Say you're putting away $1,000 every month and earning 8% annually on your investments. Getting to your first $20,000 takes roughly 19 months of consistent contributions. A year and a half of discipline, of saying no to things, of trusting a process you can't fully see yet. That stretch is hard, and honestly, most people abandon it somewhere in the middle. But here's where it gets interesting. Your second $20,000 doesn't take another 19 months. It takes about 17. Why? Because now your first $20,000 is in the game alongside your monthly savings, generating its own returns. You're putting in exactly the same effort, same contributions, same risk, same strategy, but you shaved 2 full months off just because you had more capital working for you. Your third $20,000 is faster still. And as the numbers compound upward, the acceleration becomes almost hard to believe. By the time you're sitting on $400,000, your investments alone can generate the next $20,000 in roughly 5 months. The same milestone that once took you nearly 2 years now happens automatically while you sleep. That first $20,000 felt like trying to push a truck uphill. Every $20,000 after that feels more and more like watching a conveyor belt do the work for you. Now you might be thinking there's some exclusive financial world that rich people access. Hedge funds, private equity, secret investment vehicles only unlocked once you've crossed certain thresholds. And at the ultra-wealthy tier, there's some truth to that. But that's not what drives the $20,000 effect. The real secret is almost frustratingly simple. It's just math at scale. A 10% return on $1,000 is $100. That's fine. That's a nice dinner. A 10% return on $10,000 is $1,000. Same rate, same time frame, same strategy. But now it actually moves the needle. And a 10% return on $20,000 is $2,000 landing in your account without you doing anything to earn it. That's money showing up because your money is working on your behalf. You're not buying different investments than someone with $500. You can use the exact same index funds, the same brokerage accounts, the same boring long-term strategy. The only variable is scale, and scale is what converts small percentage wins into real financial momentum. But here's the thing most people completely miss. And I'd argue this is the most valuable insight in this entire video. When you save $20,000 starting from zero, you haven't just accumulated a number in an account. You've rebuilt your relationship with money from the ground up. You've rewired something fundamental. Think about what it actually takes to get there. Unless you're earning exceptional money or have almost zero overhead, this requires real sacrifice. You had to track your spending with actual honesty. You had to say no to things you genuinely wanted. You had to resist every impulse that told you to spend instead of save. And you had to do it not once, but consistently, over months and sometimes years. More importantly, you proved something to yourself. You proved that you are someone who can control money rather than being controlled by it. That's not a small thing. That's an identity shift that bleeds into every financial decision you make for the rest of your life. Before hitting $20,000, you might stress about whether a $5 coffee fits into your week. After hitting it, you've already proven you can make the hard calls when they matter. The small stuff stops consuming you because you've established something bigger, a clear set of financial priorities you've actually lived by. There's another psychological upgrade that comes with this threshold that almost nobody talks about. Your brain stops reading every unexpected expense as a catastrophe and starts reading them as inconveniences or even opportunities. When you're living paycheck to paycheck, a car repair doesn't just cost money, it derails your entire financial month. Your laptop dying isn't just annoying, it's a crisis. Your rent increasing isn't just frustrating, it feels like a threat to your stability. But with $20,000 in your corner, your car needs work, annoying but handled. Your laptop dies. Maybe it's actually time for an upgrade. Your rent jumps. Now you're asking whether your salary should jump too. Even better, you start noticing opportunities that were always around you but out of reach. A friend pitches a small business idea and needs investors. Before, you'd nod politely and move on. Now you can actually run the numbers. A beat-up rental property shows up at a discount. Before, you'd scroll past it. Now you can look at it seriously. Your company wants someone to attend a career-building conference but won't cover the cost. Before, you'd pass. Now you can evaluate whether the return is worth the investment. This is the real meaning behind the phrase, money makes money. It's not a cosmic unfairness written into the universe. It's that having money gives you options, and options are what convert into more money over time. Here's something else that shifts at the $20,000 mark that might feel counterintuitive. You stop obsessing over small expenses and start paying obsessive attention to big ones. Sounds backwards, I know. Bear with me. When money is tight, every purchase feels high stakes. Generic cereal versus name brand. $3 coffee versus brewing at home. Regular gas versus premium. These decisions take up mental real estate they don't deserve. But once you have a real financial foundation, you start to see clearly that these micro decisions barely move the needle on your long-term picture. Even if you saved $1,000 a year by cutting every small luxury, that's not what determines whether you build wealth. What determines it are the big decisions: where you choose to live, what you drive, how aggressively you invest, how much you earn and grow your income over time. These choices can swing your net worth by 6 figures over a decade. So instead of burning mental energy on whether to buy the organic apples, you direct that same energy toward optimizing your housing costs, pushing for higher income, and making sure your investment strategy is actually working. That reorientation is incredibly freeing. You stop sweating things that don't matter and start thinking like someone who's actually building something. And speaking of building, let's talk about what $20,000 does to your career. This part surprises most people. When you're living paycheck to paycheck, you're effectively trapped. Your employer might be difficult, the culture might be suffocating, the work might be slowly draining your will to exist, but you can't leave because that next direct deposit isn't optional. This puts you in the weakest possible negotiating position. You can't push back on unreasonable demands. You can't ask for the raise you've earned. You can't take time off to explore better options. You need the job more than the job needs you, and at some level, everyone can feel that. $20,000 flips that dynamic completely. Now you have what I call runway money. You could leave tomorrow and have months to find something better. You're not going to do it recklessly, but knowing you could changes everything about how you show up. You ask for the raise because the worst outcome is still survivable. You push back on bad requests because your financial safety net means you're not negotiating from desperation. You explore other opportunities because you can absorb a little risk. And here's what's wild. Most of the time, you never even spend that runway money. Just having it changes your posture. You come across as more confident, more grounded, more decisive. People notice. Better projects come your way. Recognition follows. And often, more money follows recognition. It's a quiet superpower you carry that most people can't even see. But the effect it has on your trajectory is very real. Now here's where most people blow it, and I genuinely see this pattern repeat constantly. They cross the $20,000 threshold, feel the shift, and immediately reward themselves in a way that wipes it out. A new car because the discipline earned it. An extravagant vacation because they deserve it. A down payment on a house they can't quite afford yet. Don't do this. That $20,000 isn't your prize for good behavior. It's the seed capital for the rest of your financial life. It's the foundation that compounds into generational wealth if you're patient enough to let it grow instead of cashing it in. And here's something that should make you either laugh or genuinely reconsider your priorities. The average person over their lifetime will spend more on their car than it would take to reach complete financial independence. Sit with that for a second. Between monthly payments, insurance, maintenance, fuel, and depreciation, most people are dropping $600 to $800 every single month just on transportation. Over 4 decades, that figure is often north of $400,000. And those same people frequently say they can't afford to invest for retirement. The moment a new car leaves the dealership lot, it loses roughly 20% of its value. You're not just spending money, you're actively destroying wealth. Meanwhile, that same monthly amount invested in a diversified portfolio doesn't evaporate. It multiplies. This isn't about becoming someone who never enjoys anything. It's about being deliberate instead of reflexive. When you have a clear picture of where you're going and you truly understand what compound growth does over time, it becomes easy to tell the difference between what you want in the moment and what you actually care about building. Look, $20,000 isn't going to make you rich overnight, but it will permanently change the way your brain processes money, risk, and opportunity. It's the dividing line between surviving financially and actually designing the life you want. Start building that foundation today, because the version of you 10 years from now is going to be shaped almost entirely by the decisions you make right now. Make them count.